Welcome to Drive Smart Virginia's The Road We Travel. In this installment, we speak with Brandy Brubaker from Virginia DMV about vulnerable road users.
So, you got to just always be looking out and looking out for each other, like you said, because we all share the road and we all are trying to get home safely, no matter what method we choose to travel by.
Our guest today is Brandy Brubaker. She's the director of the Virginia Highway Safety Office for the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles. Brandy, thanks for agreeing to join us to talk about vulnerable road users today.
Thanks for having me, Rich, and thanks for drawing attention to this important topic.
What's your background with DMV? You've been there about as long as I've been with Drive Smart Virginia, about 11 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I started out in our communications office as a spokesperson and worked my way up through the communications office to director. And when the opportunity opened up to come to the highway safety office and do more great work with these wonderful folks here, I had to throw my hat in the ring.
Maybe we should talk a minute about what is a vulnerable road user. I think of pedestrians and bicyclists, but what other road users are vulnerable road users?
That definition can vary depending on who you're talking to, but it could, of course, include pedestrians and bicyclists. Sometimes folks include motorcyclists in there because they're away from the protection of, a car or an SUV or a truck. We also talk about including young drivers and mature drivers in that category as well.
Well, looking at the pedestrian numbers, 2019, just before COVID, we had 126 pedestrian fatalities in Virginia. Any number is unacceptable. But then in 2020, I guess when vehicle miles traveled went down because of COVID restrictions, pedestrian miles traveled, for lack of a better term, also went down because the fatality numbers went down in 2020 during the COVID restrictions. But then they spiked up in 21 and 22. We had 172 in 2022. Let's see, the last numbers we've got are for 2025. I expect those are finalized. That's 139 fatalities. So we're still well above what we were prior to COVID. Any idea what might be causing the numbers to stay above what they were in 2019?
That's something that we're really looking into, because we're seeing these numbers going up and that's a trend that, of course, we don't want to see, especially when we're seeing fatalities as a whole across the state go down for all categories. They reduced by 10% last year. So what is it specifically about the pedestrian category that's causing it to increase? So we're taking a close look at that to get more information and ramping up our support for communities that need some extra assistance.
We'll talk about pedestrians specifically for right now. This is kind of a tough nut to crack because there's so many moving parts to it. Pedestrians, drivers, the distraction factor is probably part of it. What other causes are we seeing, and how do we go about trying to reduce the number of vulnerable road user crashes?
For drivers, slowing down is one of the most important things you can do. Speed dramatically affects survivability. A person struck at higher speeds is far more likely to suffer serious or fatal injuries than someone's struck at a much lower speed. So, you notice that when you're driving in communities where there is a lot of pedestrian traffic, the speed limits are also slower. So pay attention to those. Sometimes you think if you're in a 25 mile per hour zone and you're just going 35 or 45, you think that's not too fast. That may not be a big difference. But if, you're in a crash involving a pedestrian, that can literally be the difference between life or death for that person.
There's a misunderstanding, I think, for a lot of people. If you double the speed, you'd think you'd double the danger or double the force of a crash, but it really doesn't work that way. Physics makes it quadruple. So if you're going 40 miles an hour, you are carrying 4 times the energy into the crash that you would if you were doing 20 miles an hour. So, even doing 5 miles an hour over the speed limit adds a lot of force. And speed limits aren't set arbitrarily, I don't think. I think they're set based on the type of road, the infrastructure, the type of traffic. All that stuff is factored into what is a safe speed for a stretch of road. So when you go above that, you're sort of breaking the system that's there to help protect people.
Exactly. And it's just a mind shift. That speed limit is there for a reason. And you see a lot of folks that like to go that 5 miles an hour over a speed limit and think, well, that's not speeding. But it is.
It is, yeah.
So yeah. And we just want drivers to be mindful of that, because no driver wants to cause a crash that seriously injures or kills someone. No driver wants to cause a crash. So just giving yourself that extra time by slowing down and focusing fully on the task of driving can make a huge difference. It does make a huge difference.
And this is really the same problem for bicyclists, motorcyclists, anyone who's out there who is vulnerable to being seriously injured in a crash with a vehicle.
Yeah, we just launched this great new motorcycle campaign that it's a kind of a flip. It's about motorists and increasing their awareness of motorcyclists, because the motorcycle is a small vehicle. It can be hard to see. It can, get into the blind spot very easily. We launched a campaign called I Spy, with this little girl who's playing I Spy with motorcyclists in the back. She's riding
cool, yeah.
safely buckled up in the back of the car. It's really about humanizing the motorcyclist under the helmet and remembering that's a person. So it's extra important to be really vigilant, particularly this time of year when we have a lot of motorcyclists on our roads.
Well, at Drive Smart Virginia, we'd like to talk about everyone sharing the road. Everyone has an equal responsibility. Drivers have a responsibility to be aware of their surroundings and keep their eyes on the road at all times. Vulnerable road users also have a responsibility to do what they can to be safe, cross where drivers would expect you to cross. I live in Chesterfield County, and I know when I drive into the city, I have to kind of reset my approach to driving, because there's just so much more going on when you drive in the city. People are crossing streets, and
Yes.
If you're not paying attention, you can get yourself into a little trouble.
Right. Pedestrian safety is not just an urban issue. Of course, we see a high number of pedestrian crashes in urban areas, but rural areas could be dangerous too, because there's people traveling higher speeds. There may be limited lighting, fewer sidewalks, or safe crossing opportunities. So you have to be alert everywhere, because people are walking. Just this morning, I'm traveling into work, and there's on a very narrow 2-lane country road, and somebody's jogging on the road. So got to just always be looking out, and looking out for each other, like you said, because we all share the road, and we all are trying to get home safely, no matter what method we choose to travel by.
We think of it as a system where everybody has a responsibility to look out for the other person. And now we talked about drivers, distraction. What is it that, let's say, a pedestrian or bicyclist can do to make themselves more visible to motor vehicles, drivers?
Yeah, visibility is critical. Wearing brighter reflective clothing, if you're walking carrying a light at night, can help drivers recognize you sooner, especially if you're driving somewhere that doesn't have good lighting conditions. And being predictable. That's something I always try to do as a pedestrian. Cross where drivers are gonna expect you to cross, and make eye contact with the drivers before crossing.
That is so
to help
important.
ensure that you've been seen. Right, because you assume the driver's doing the right thing and paying attention. But sometimes we shouldn't assume, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting at a stoplight, just look at the cars next to you, and you see people are doing lots of other things than paying attention to their driving.
Exactly. So just kind of, making eye contact, or just making sure that driver sees you, just so that you can make sure that it's clear for you to go. Because when I'm out walking somewhere, I want to make sure that I get home safe.
So we got visibility. Oh, what about infrastructure? So I went up Northern Virginia. I was up there for a discussion about pedestrian safety, and we went for a walk to just look at what the infrastructure was like. And this was up in Northern Virginia, where they have a lot of sidewalks and that sort of thing. But I was amazed at some of the hazards that there were for pedestrians, places where they actually had to walk in the street to get around parts of sidewalks that were broken, or that sort of stuff with the infrastructure. What are we doing, or what can be done to make the infrastructure more conducive to safety for vulnerable road users?
Yeah, I know that our partners, in engineering, the roadway design, and working, either locally or at the state level, are continually looking at this specific thing that you're talking about, improving sidewalk access, improving lighting, looking at the latest technology to try to time lights better and make sure that they're doing what they can to help improve the safety of the pedestrians and to just make it safer for bicyclists and make it safer for everyone who's out on the roads. So that's definitely something that they're looking at and always evaluating all the road miles. But there are a lot of roads out there and there's a lot of sidewalks. So I think that folks should, make sure that they're looking out for those types of conditions.
What else would you like to talk about, Brandy?
Well, we've got a lot going on here at the Highway Safety Office, and folks here are working really hard to try to make sure that we are offering well-rounded programs, really actionable data that is helpful to folks, and marketing campaigns that, resonate with viewers and our audiences, and working with our partners like Drive Smart Virginia. We do a lot of work with y'all, and we enjoy working with you. So I think that we, appreciate the opportunity to do this work, and it feels good to know that you can help in some small way. And we're always looking for ways that we can grow and expand and do more to try to help Virginians get home safely.
Making the transportation system safer, in my opinion, is kind of like a team effort. Everybody involved has to have their head in the game. And I don't feel like we all have our head in the game anymore when it comes to transportation. But cell phones are a big problem now. Just for drivers, pedestrians, everybody seems to be more attached to their cell phones when they are using a road than they should be.
Yeah, distraction is, and continues to be a growing concern for everyone on the road. And it's not just cell phones, but cell phones is one of the ones that you see very visibly. You see people. I've seen people making videos on their phones while they're driving. People doing phone calls with other people while they're driving. And you got to stop and think, what are you doing here? Are you making a video or are you driving? It's that need to multitask and to constantly be connected, and it's addicting. So I think we need to think about driving differently.
You brought up that word, multitasking, and I think it's a myth because the brain doesn't work that way. It doesn't say, all right, I'm going to use 50% of my brain to do this task and 50%. Your brain switches from one task to another. You just don't realize that it's focused. It's dividing its attention by focusing on one thing or the other. And if one of the things it should be focused on is driving, you can't have anything else that it's focusing on other than that task. And that's anything.
Yeah, because when you take your eyes off the road to look at your phone, even if it's just for a quick second, that could be enough time for that a ball to roll out into the road and a child to follow right behind it. And, that's happened to me on another dark country road, if you can believe it. And thankfully, I was fully engaged in driving and was able to stop in time. But I think we've all had a moment like that.
Yeah, that brings back a memory from when I was learning to drive. My mother was on the passenger side, and I was driving in our neighborhood, slow, and a ball rolled out in front of me, and I hit the brakes so hard, I think if we hadn't been wearing seat belts, my mother probably would have broken her nose on the dashboard. It's just like that reaction.
Right. And if you had been focused on something else or had the divided attention of multitasking at that moment, you might not have seen that ball in time. And who knows what might have happened. And that happens every day. There are the situations that end like ours where everything was okay and we moved on and life went on. And there are the situations where life completely changes for the driver and for the person who is on the road.
I think the approach that we take is education. That's all we can do at Drive Smart Virginia. And it's a big part of what DMV does is to inform drivers, all road users about the dangers. You put statistics together. The one thing about distracted driving, though, is I think we all know it's underreported.
Yes, a distraction is, notoriously difficult to show in the statistics because oftentimes it relies on the driver needing to admit that they were distracted. And a lot of folks aren't going to do that. So we probably know that, or we do know that there's a lot more distraction related crashes, injuries, and fatalities than we'll ever know.
Yeah, it's really pervasive. And I just don't think in most cases where distraction was involved, a driver's going to get out of the wreckage and hold their phone aloft and say, my bad, I was on the phone. It's not the same as a DUI crash where it's kind of obvious what happened and it's easy to, well, not easy, but it's provable.
Right. There, we drive smart, DMV, all of our hardworking partners say this a lot. Crashes are fully preventable. Something causes them, and it's almost always human behavior, and distraction is a huge cause of that. And that's why it's just really important to be fully attentive behind the wheel. I say this all day long, and it's so tempting to look at your phone when it dings. So
it
that's
is,
why
and we're getting
great.
conditioned, to.
Yes.
It really is addictive, especially social media.
Yeah, because you want to be fully connected.
Well, you don't want to be the last to know something.
Right, exactly. And I could tell you that of the texts I receive during a day, they can all wait. They can all
That's
wait.
true. When's the last time you got a text and thought, oh, thank goodness I looked at that right now?
Never.
Yeah, I mean, really, it doesn't happen hardly ever.
Right. So just leave the text, turn your phone off, turn it on silent, throw it in the trunk if you have to, get it away from you, put it in a locked box, whatever you have to do. Just get it away from you and just focus on making your ride the safest you can. And we all work together. We've got drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcyclists. We've got engineers working to make the road safer. We've got our law enforcement partners out on the road, enforcing the traffic laws for those people who aren't following them. We've got all of our great nonprofit and state and higher education partners, and everybody's out there working. And we've got a lot of great partners in the communities too that are just doing simple things like maybe just being a good example. Sometimes that's all you need to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. And especially if you have a younger driver or, a child in the car with you, setting a good example is incredibly important.
It's critical. If your mom doesn't wear her seatbelt, you're not going to wear your seatbelt probably either. If your mom's or your dad are on their cell phone all the time when they drive, you're going to think that's okay. And you'll probably mimic those behaviors. Unless you're the annoying little kid like me that was always saying everybody had their seatbelt on. Guess that's why I ended up in this
field.
For
you. Well, and before we wrap up, I do want to reinforce the idea, and this we firmly believe this at Drive Smart Virginia, is that this is a safety system, and it's everyone who uses the road needs to be plugged into that system and aware of what they're doing, and have safety on their mind and be focused on getting to their destination safely. There are a lot of moving parts to that, and if everybody's doing their job, it should work. The problem we have right now is a lot of people just aren't doing their job. And by that, I mean paying attention when you're driving, keep your head up when you're walking, don't look at your phone, wear bright colors. This is all stuff that makes the system work better.
I think we all play a role in safety and small choices. Because it's all about choices, right?
Oh, yeah.
Small choices save lives. It's a very small choice to slow down. It's a small choice to put your phone away. It's a small choice to walk that extra, few feet to get to the crosswalk, but it adds up at the end of the day. And that's how we keep everyone safe, and throw in some patience at the end there for good measure. And that's what makes the difference, because everyone's trying to get home safely, and we all play a role in that.
If we could all be just a little more polite out there, it'd be helpful.
Yeah, it would be. So I think everyone should just try to just have a little bit of patience today. You're just like our campaign that behind or under every helmet is a human. In every other vehicle, that's a human. Walking the streets, that person that is crossing the road that maybe you're in a hurry and you wish that they weren't there walking at the moment, that's a person trying to get somewhere. And just practice patience.
small choices can have big consequences. Picking
Small
up that
choices can save lives.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Do I pick up the phone because I heard it ding, or do I let it sit there until I get to my destination? It seems like a small thing, but it can really make a big difference.
It makes all the difference every day. Every day for drivers on the road, we see both ends of that decision. Which way did they go? We see the aftermath of that, or we don't hear about it at all because nothing happened.
Brandy, does DMV have some resources on your website for pedestrians, drivers, and stuff?
We do.
Well, go ahead and plug that. Let's get that out there.
dmv.virginia.gov is our website. And you can also check us out on social media. We post on highway safety issues regularly, and feel free to share. We've got a YouTube channel as well. It's got tons of videos that you can share with your loved ones and be a safety advocate in your own circle.
There you go. And also, don't forget, you can check out our website as well, drivesmartva.org. That concludes this installment of The Road We Travel. If you'd like to suggest a guest, please email me, rich.jacobs@drivesmartva.org. And be sure to visit our website, drivesmartva.org. Be safe out there.